Amy Adams.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. It's good to take a call this afternoon on the regulatory reform bill, and it's good, sir, because it's actually, I think, a part of a much bigger debate that we've been having in this House over the last week about the future of the country and where we're going and the creation of jobs and the things that this national-led government is doing to make sure those jobs are created. And in that context, I think it's worth taking a moment to look back over the last 5 years of the previous government, where we saw over that time a growth of 250,000 jobs in the non-productive sector. But scarily, over the same period, we saw a loss of 50,000 jobs in the export sector. So all the time that non-productive sector was growing and creating ever more of a drain on the taxpayer's purse, we actually had what should have been the engine room of our economy shrinking and shrinking and shrinking to the point that engine room is now really nothing more than an auxiliary motor. And turning that around is an absolutely key part of getting this country back into the game. And that's a multifaceted response. There's not a single thing that you do that suddenly fires up your export economy, problem solved, away we go. There's any number of things, and I think all of those things can be sort of broadly categorised as putting the confidence back into the business sector that they can invest in New Zealand and they can grow their businesses and create jobs and take people on. Because at the end of the day, if there isn't that sort of confidence that actually this is a good place to do business, this is a good place to invest money, they are not going to be creating jobs for our New Zealanders to raise their incomes, to raise their standard of living. So that has to be a big part of the plan, and we've seen a lot of that already from this national-led government. We've seen Minister Wilkinson give effect to the 90-day trial periods, and the response from that has been fantastic. And we know that it's created already 13,000 extra jobs, because businesses are saying, OK, that's good, you've taken a bit of pressure off us, and now we can have the confidence to get in and use that to create jobs for New Zealanders. That's what's going to give New Zealanders in this country some long-term security. I think what we see in this regulatory reform bill is a step in that same direction. We're saying that this is a government that isn't going to burden you with cost for the sake of cost. We're going to look at it, and if the costs are excessive and outweigh the benefit to society, then we're going to go back and say, well, look, do we need this? And I think that asking those questions all the time, do we actually need this, is fundamental to what any good government should do. And I will always support a government looking very closely at the cost that it imposes on hard-working New Zealand families and New Zealand businesses. And remember, most of those businesses are very small. You know, let's not get caught up into thinking that this is some big, large, faceless corporation. Most New Zealand businesses, the vast majority, are small enterprises, family-run enterprises, and it's about the costs and the hoops that they have to jump through time and time again just to get through the day. So certainly, sir, the process of reviewing that and making sure they're appropriate, is, I think, absolutely key to a sustainable recovery. I've got to say, it's not surprising to me the Green Party aren't supporting it. Of course, seems that their nirvana, nothing at all would be allowed. But, the interesting thing is, of course, you've got to create business activity and wealth to pay for all the sort of social spending that they constantly call for. So I think, frankly, it's irresponsible to stand there and say, well, they shouldn't be allowed this, we should chuck down on this, we should stop that, we should regulate that out of existence, but at the same time continue to call for ever-increased spending on handouts. One final comment that I want to make in this space, and it's perhaps a bit of a philosophical one. It always seems to me that excessive regulation and the drive for more and more regulation is actually the sort of the necessary or expected flow-on of a complete abdication of sort of personal responsibility. And we see it all the time, don't we, where something's gone wrong, the first thing you'll often see is, oh, there should be rules stopping that, it shouldn't be allowed. Well, look, that's, often there's a valid question to be looked at, but also often we have to say that bad or hard cases make bad law. And if we react to every single thing that goes wrong by making an excuse to wrap up that industry in even more red tape and regulation, then we are going to wrap ourselves into a completely catatonic state as an economy. So I think that guarding against the overuse of the power we have, trying to remove any possibility of any harm to anyone from anything, which seems to be the end game for the nanny state, of course, and the left-wing supporters of that, is something we do have to guard against, because the real end game of that is a catatonic economy that won't create jobs and that won't provide for its futures. So yes, regulation is essential. We do need to have it. But equally as important as our power to create it is our power to constantly be vigilant about whether the regulations we have in place are necessary and productive and to the ultimate benefit of New Zealanders. So, very happy to support this reading of the Regulatory Responsibility Bill.